You're looking at the top 10 running backs walking into 2024, according to your boy Smitty. Now, we're going to break down why I have this order, why I might maybe want to bump some things around if we're going to think a little bit bold, right? I could have a bold take on my rankings. I could have a conservative take. I could have a kind of, this is how I think it'll go take, and watch out for, a sleeping giant like Achane or Kyren. Of course, you're going to draft differently than this because you're going to want to take advantage of ADP, and ADP does not have what you have on screen. The Fantasy Football Show Top 10 Running Back Ranking video begins right now. Again, I can't emphasize enough that everybody's draft will be different than this ranking board right here. If you're playing in best ball, you'll have a lot of wide receiver heavy approaches walking into your first couple rounds, so these guys will fall more often than not deeper in one of those best ball drafts than they will in your mom and pop, Aunt Edna and Uncle Buck league that you might be doing. But right here, we're going to stick with running backs. But right here, I'm going to say that, Christian McCaffrey is going to default to my number 2 because he probably deserves to be the number 1 overall pick in any sort of redraft league. I get that. But I'm going to go a little bold and say, I think Bijan outscores him. I think Breece Hall and Gibbs and Kyren and Achane could all outscore him too if he misses any time. He's 28 years old. But we're going to put him here out of respect, and we're going to put him here because we're all not passing on him, at 1 or 2 in a redraft. We're just probably not gonna do it. But are we wanting Bijan more than him? I am. I did last year, didn't work out, but I feel like rinsing and repeating, as many of you do, because we got screwed by Arthur Smith. I think everybody and their mother knows that this is the most talented running back outside of McCaffrey in the NFL. And if McCaffrey's going to drop off at the age of 28, the year that running backs do decline typically, and he might be different for one more year, that's why we're ranking him here. But we're expecting this man to come out of 2024 as the new de facto top talent running back in the National Football League. Everybody says after McCaffrey, we have so-and-so. Next year, 2025, we do expect that phrase to be, okay, after Bijan, here's my running back rankings. I don't think very many people disagree with that. I think you'll find a lot of Christian McCaffrey believers that think it's not close, but I get that, and I don't hate that take. But for me, I'm going to rank Bijan 1 and Christian McCaffrey 2. Why do I have Bijan 1? Well, let's take a look at Bijan walking into the 2024 fantasy football season. He's a Saturn man, number 1. If anybody doesn't know, yeah, he's a Saturn man.
The Saturn men.
One small step for man, one giant leap for Saturn.
Now, for anybody that doesn't know, this board, you may know the bold prediction board, the Moon Men, the Mars Men. The Saturn Men's a little different. They're bigger name players, but they're the bigger name players that we trust of the big name players, right? So you got to choose who you're going to take at the top of your draft. Who are you going to take when push comes to shove? When you're dealing with, those top 15 overall picks, and in most of these cases, JD5 is obviously not a top 15 overall pick. There are some exceptions to this board in terms of having like later guys like, Mahomes and Hurts are going later. They're not in the top 15, but these are like stud players, right? The Saturn men list is like the cream of the crop. These are the filet mignon, steaks on the menu. But every single one of these players, history is going to remember your boy Smitty differently, because people are going to, at the end of the year, when we pull this board up and celebrate it, everyone's going to go, oh, whoa, big, bold predictions. You got Breece Hall. Everyone knew he was going to be good. You got Hurts and Mahomes, 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks. Oh, bold predictions, Smitty. Gibbs and Achane and Kyren. Everybody knew these guys were good. How is this bold? Well, let me refresh your memory. In every single one of these cases, but maybe MHJ, who I still love at his ADP, even at the 12, 13, 14 overall pick, he's still going to smash from that. I really believe that. But Hall is going at 8, 9, and 10. He should go at 1, 2, 3, or 4. Kyren's going in round 3, breaching in some cases round 4. So I don't want to hear that this one isn't bold to say this is one of the top 5 running backs in the National Football League. We'll get to that in a minute. Same thing with Achane. He's dropping into round 3. I've seen him go as late as late 3 and sometimes round 4, but he's definitely inside the 3.1 to 3.10 territory. That is a home run. He's a top 5 running back. Now you can say, oh, everyone sees Gibbs coming, Smitty. Gibbs is literally literally going at 9, 10, 11, 12. So these are all monster steals. And Bijan going 6'7" overall and could be the number one overall player. Not only that, but the number one overall running back. Tell me how these aren't, like, in hindsight, no one's going to remember this, but tell me how we're not smashing the ADP value on every single one of these guys. And Hurts, in your mom and pop league, he'll go in the third round, maybe second. In Aunt Edna's league, Mahomes is probably going around 3 or 2. Like, those are not normal leagues. In best ball, Hurts' ADP is 4.1. Mahomes' ADP is 5.1. These guys win leagues at that territory. So the Saturn board is not what you might say in hindsight as a bold, like a non-bold take of a bunch of the top guys. It literally is a fantastic a group of players. And just for good measure, like JD5 is going to be a top 5 quarterback. And I know that in my bones, and I know that everybody else is like getting on board slowly, but we've been talking about this since January. No one's as high on JD5 as me. Nobody. I don't care what you say. Nobody. People are barely catching up, some people, to where I was in terms of value on JD5 in January right now. No one loves this kid more than I do, and he's going to be the epitome of the Saturn board. But this board right here is not just a board of players that are obvious takes, and I think it will be very much remembered like that. And I don't really care. I care what you guys think, my diehards, but I'm just telling you, just be prepared for people to be like, oh, big, bold prediction board, Smitty, way to go out on a limb, when every single one of those picks but MHJ was a steal from their ADP. Like, you're crushing your league from their ADP. It's wild. It's wild that anybody would look at that board and open their mouth and say, oh, Smitty, I can't believe you think Bijan's going to be good. Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyren Achane. They're all absolute steals. And so on that note, Bijan Robinson, and let me pull up his board real quick. He was running back 9 in a very disappointing year. Absolutely atrocious year considering what our expectations were. He was still running back 9. He still had 1,463 total yards and 8 touchdowns, which was really, really damn good when you really think about what it felt like. And when you reflect back, you're like, God, it feels like he had a 500-yard year. Like it took a toll on my soul. Like, I feel about 2 or 3 years older. It's almost like president years. You become president, those 4 years are like 15 years. I felt like I got 5 years older for every month Bijan played football, or you could say didn't play football. But 2023, these stats are going to get crushed. I kind of feel like he's going to, let me put it this way, his rushing totals alone will trump his total yards and total touchdowns. So his rushing yards will be, let's call it 1,463 minimum. I don't even know that 1,400 covers it anymore, especially the way that the Falcons coaching staff is talking about. He's a running back first. He's a running back first. They keep saying that the last couple of weeks. So what he did sum total last year, he'll do alone via the run. And he's going to have about, we'll call it 70 to 80 receptions for about 550 to 650. And we'll call it 4 to 6 touchdowns. I think that's what my new assessment would be. I'll change this later, but that feels very safe. And that puts him at running back 1 or running back 2 overall. You're talking about 12 plus at least 4 touchdowns. So 16 minimum, 15, 16 minimum total touchdowns, and at least about 1,900 minimum total yards. He's going to annihilate last year. And last year, he was running back 9. So it's coming, and you can tell when you watch him play, he's the most talented running back in the league, minus maybe Christian McCaffrey, who may or may not be that player this year when all is said and done, right? Because he enters the age of 28. But we're going to keep him here out of respect. We're going to keep him here because he takes care of his body better than probably any player in the National Football League. So if anybody can have one more last hurrah at 28, it will be McCaffrey. But make no mistake about it, he's not Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's an outlier. We can never expect a player at 29 to ever do it again. It will probably happen, but you can't expect it. It's 1 in 50, 1 in 100. The NFL has changed very much. I talked to a former defensive player, you might know him, Eric Davis, played for the Niners. He was on a live stream with Raj and I on Instagram, and I asked him point blank, why are the running backs falling apart sooner than they used to? And I said, before you answer, I have my theory, and I want you to tell me what you think, because there's no real science behind it. It used to be 30 years old was the drop-off. Now the drop-off is 28. But the NFL, no matter what somebody might say, is a harder-hitting, faster, stronger league. The abuse on the body takes more of a toll, and players and kids and the sport is starting at a much younger age, and people are hitting harder and harder and harder, dating back to when people are first putting pads on. And the one position that takes a toll more than any other is the running back position. The one position you can be as smart as can be and have, the best hands and have the best mind and be still in your prime mentally and physically, but if your knees aren't there, you're done, and that's the running back position. So to me, it makes sense that if your knees are going to give out, if you no longer can hit the hole fast and get to that gap before it closes. Think of it like elevator doors that are closing that won't open if you stick your hand through it. They'll literally close, and they will not let you breach the elevator doors if they close. And these running backs have to get to the hole. If they don't get to the hole, if they can't have that explosion and that quick first step, they're done. It doesn't matter how good they are at catching the ball. It doesn't matter how much intelligence they bring to the game. Maybe they're more knowledgeable. Wide receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks and other positions can compensate a little bit. A wide receiver might slow down, but he can be smarter. He could run a better route. There's a lot of ways to extend your shelf life. But for running backs, it really is about explosion. And if you're taking harder hits in the Pop Warner days, then the high school days, then the college days, and when you get to the pros, you're 1 or 2 years more worn down in your knees. Your shelf life of 30 turns to 29, then it turns to 28. And that was my theory. And I asked Eric Davis this, who is a former great defensive player back in the old school days. So if anybody's going to say, no, the old school football was more hard hitting and tougher, he would be the one that would tell you that. He said, you're right. He said he too believes it's because the toll on the body is just a tougher, stronger, faster league. And as I said, kids are starting younger and they're just wearing down quicker. And it's the one position that can't weather through that. It takes years off your life as a running back. So I feel pretty good about my assessment because Eric Davis, no better person to ask than an old school defensive hard-nosed player that played tough. If he says that he thinks that's also the reason, then I feel very, very good about the assessment of that. And I've always wondered that. I'm sure you have too. And I feel very good about where we stand on that. And I feel very good about saying that that's not going to go away. That's not a cycle. That is a proven, in my assessment, a proven reason why we're going to see 28 always be the year that you may get one more season. And we're going to heed the road. We're going to give Christian McCaffrey the 28-year-old season, but I'm not giving him 29. I'm just not. And I'm not going to give him 28 in a bunch of leagues. I'll draft him in certain spots, but I'm not taking him in every league. There's too much risk when you can go ahead and get a Bijan, a Hall, or a Gibbs and feel just as good without any of the risk. So in one league, I'm fine with it. In best ball, anytime you got the one pick, that's like 5 to 8% of your leagues, maybe 5. Take it. Take Christian McCaffrey. That's going to be when you own him and be fine with it. Breece Hall. This guy is... How tall is Breece Hall? I'm pretty sure the last time we checked...
Breece Hall is 8 foot tall. He will always answer the mother freaking call.
He does a hell of a job. A hell of a job. A hell of a job.
Breece Hall, please report to the moon.
Get Breece. Breece Hall was number 2 out of all running backs in 2023, running for 994, 5 tutties, 76 receptions, which was unbelievable when you really think about what he dealt with Zach Wilson in a QB carousel. 591 and 4 touchdowns. To be number 2 without having a 1,000-yard season, without having more than 10 total touchdowns in either category, receiving or rushing, he had 5. He had no more than 5 in either one. To have a running back 2 season, imagine what he's going to do when he runs for 1,200 yards on the ground. And I'm not saying he has to. He could be a 900 and 600 or 900 and 700 type player. He could have 700 receiving yards with Aaron Rodgers. He could get 80 receptions. He could have another 4 receiving touchdowns. He could have 5 or 6 tutties on the ground. He doesn't need to have 10 on the ground. He needs to have 10 total. We want him to have double digits, but I mean, he could literally have 900 and 700 and 11 touchdowns and another 80 receptions this year and be running back 1 or 2. He is a guaranteed, if he stays healthy, top 5 running back in this offense. And Aaron Rodgers is going to utilize him much like he did Aaron Jones. And the sky's the limit. Braylon Allen could take some of the goal line work, but he did all of this, like I said, without rushing for more than 5 tutties and not even having 1,000 yards. And he had almost literally no goal line work already. I'm not saying we want him to not have goal line work. I'm just saying I wouldn't worry about any of that. I would worry about this guy being elusive and being a 50-50 rushing receiving threat. And maybe Braylon Allen keeps him healthy. So to the moon to Saturn. For Breece Hall. I could literally put either one of these guys, Hall or Gibbs, at number 3. This is the toughest year to rank top 5 running backs because we joke around about how I always have 6 top 5 guys. And I truly do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you can make arguments that Barkley and JT and even Jacobs could creep in there, or Henry with 15 touchdowns. But yeah, I've got 6 top 5 guys, but this is the toughest year to rank them because any one of these guys, even Achane or Kyren, could be the number 1 running back this year. It is a beautiful year to go robust RB. It's a beautiful year to go against the grain when people say, even in Best Ball Underdog Fantasy, promo code Smitty. The link's in the description. Use code Smitty as well. I'll put the link in the comments somewhere. But 50% match on your first deposit up to $250. We draft at midnights Monday through Friday on this channel. We're live, obviously, Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, live when big news breaks. But most midnights, especially as we get closer and closer to the year, we start consuming more of the week. Most midnights we go live and draft. And to be honest with you, like this is a situation where I am constantly wanting to mix things up and draft all of these guys at 2 and 3 and 4, right? But I also am trying to deploy a lot of running back approaches because on Underdog and in Best Ball, there's such a tendency to go wide receiver, or even more so wide receiver, and sometimes even wide receiver again. And that puts you in a vulnerable spot if you do go double RB to not have receivers, not because you're making a bad choice, but because everybody else is oversaturating a choice that everybody else is choosing to do. And so no one's different. Like, you're one way to stand out if you land your wide receivers, if you get the right wide receiver at the right spot and you're able to deploy a running back strategy. And let's say you get DK Metcalf and Tank Dell as your wide receiver 1 and 2, and you land those. Well, if you've got Gibbs and Hall, or Bijan and Hall, or Bijan and Kyren, or whatever, and you're able to use that RB arsenal along with overperforming wide receivers, you could crush everybody because you're going against traffic. You're going against the grain. This is the one year where I love going RB more than any other that I can remember. And on the note of Jahmyr Gibbs and what he brings to the table, I mean, we've got so much to look at. This is Monty's stats. Let's look at Monty in a second because he's going to be relevant. People always bring up Montgomery and they want to know, what about Montgomery? Gibbs, number 1 in the NFL. Well, tied with McCaffrey for top 3 running back finishes. He had 6 of them. He had 6 top 3 running back finishes, and he was second in top 5 running back finishes. But the funny, odd part about that is every one of his top 5 finishes was also one of these top 3 finishes. He never finished 4 or 5. He was just 1, 2, or 3 every time. He was tied for 4th in top 10 running back finishes. And as you can see here, he wasn't used until week number 7. So this guy ended up being an elite running back on every level once he was starting to get used. And you can see here, there's no more impressive stat line from week 7 on, or within this number of games. Number 3 overall, number 1 overall, bye week, 2 overall, 3 overall, 24, 29, 15, 3, and then 49 and 30. There's 11 games here. Even if we don't really include week 18, But even if we include week 17, which is, running back 49, this is the most impressive stretch out of any running back in the National Football League and in fantasy football. In a 9-game span, he had 6 top 3 finishes. We've never seen a running back look this explosive and this productive. It's crazy because once you start getting further down, you get to Breece Hall. You're like, how is Breece Hall not my number 1 overall running back? Maybe I changed my mind. Maybe it is Breece Hall, not Bijan or McCaffrey. Then you get to Gibbs. You're like, maybe Gibbs is my number 1. That's what I'm saying. This is the best year to go running back. And then for the people that go, Smitty, what about the Monty? Smitty, what about the Monty? When we get the full Monty? When he's back, what happens, Smitty? Because he's not going away. Anybody that says Monty's not going away, they just don't understand. They're petrified. They're a petrified Peter. They believe that if they keep rooting against Gibbs, they won't be wrong at the end of the day. Finally, their doubt for him will prove to pay off, and then they can sleep at night because they've been doubting Gibbs this long, and they just want some sort of sense of maybe you weren't crazy. Problem is, the stats don't lie. He was not used until week 7. Gibbs is probably the most exciting running back in the National Football League. And if we're going to pull up Monty's stats, which I have on here, I just minimized it a second ago. Monty didn't have anything to do with Jahmyr Gibbs having this line. Oh, yeah, I understand where Gibbs made his bank right here in week number 7. Monty got hurt, right? You can see these. I lined them up as closely as I could. And so week 7 and 8, he comes out and he's running back 3 and running back 1. And people have a weird, foggy way of remembering that, oh, that's why, right? No, the bye week, and then Monty came back. Monty was still productive. Running back 12, running back 13, running back 15, running back 17. That's not bad. He's getting work. He's getting volume. But Gibbs was 2, 3, 24, 29, 15, 3, 3. Monty played from the bye week on. A majority of Gibbs, 2/3 of everything Gibbs did last year, 2/3 of everything he did, Monty was on the field. It was only these first 2 games when he broke out and they started to trust him and he gained a hold of the starting job. Gibbs is a starter. I don't care what's even listed on the depth chart, or let's say they start week 1 and Monty's listed. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Gibbs is a starter. Gibbs is the guy. And if you watched football last year, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Maybe you're a box score Bobby. Maybe you're a box score Bobby. If you're doubting this right now, first of all, you should be ashamed of yourself. Second of all, you are, my friend.
All right, action.
He's a box score Bobby. He's a little sloppy. Box score Bobby. He's a box score Bobby. He's very sloppy. Bobby. You might be a box score Bobby, I don't know, but all I know is that this guy, when he was on the field in the beginning of the year, right, like in this territory, when they get near the goal line, come on out, son. Let's let Monty go in. And it was like, damn it, vulture time, right? But as we got after this bye week, when Gibbs had already grabbed the job, right, you would have noticed, and if you don't, I'm telling you, when Gibbs was on the field and he got into the end zone or the red zone, they let him continue out the drive, and they didn't do a switcheroo. So but in fairness, when Monty had the ball and he had taken the reins for that drive or whatever, and they got into the red zone, they would sometimes put Gibbs in, but they would kind of keep whoever was in. They didn't do the switcheroo anymore. And that's the most important thing to note, is that he's no longer removed as the goal line guy. In fact, I would venture to say that if there is going to be a switcheroo at all, it will be, hey, Monty, come out, and they'll put Gibbs in because his explosiveness near the red zone. Maybe if they're at the 1 or 2 yard line, they'll give those to Monty, maybe. But I don't think they even take Gibbs out in that situation. Maybe they just let Monty stay in if he was in and got down there. But I think if they're around the 10 yard line, the 8 yard line, they actually might remove Monty this year and put Gibbs in. But they did not, from the bye week on, have this situation that people try and act like they did, where it's like, oh, Monty would get the goal line work. No, whoever was in stayed in. And like I said, it's going to maybe change in the other direction this coming season. But I mean, Gibbs had a great year last year, 2023 stats right here. He was 11 touchdowns, running back 10, 945, 10, and then 52 and 316. If I had to drop like a line on you, I would say this is still very accurate in terms of my projection. 1,300 rushing yards, 5.5 a carry, 12 rushing touchdowns. Maybe this is 1,100, 1,200 yards. It could be, but that's a worst case scenario. He could get 1,300, 70 receptions, 510 and 4 tutties. I'm giving him easily over 1,800 total yards and probably 15 to 16 touchdowns and 70 receptions. That is a remarkable year for Gibbs, and that makes him arguably the number 1 overall running back. We don't even have 6 top 5 running backs anymore. We have now 1, 2, 3, 4 number 1 overall running backs is what we have. Kyren Williams. I mean, what can you say other than
He's Kyren, he's 7 feet tall, and he knows how to handle a ball.
There's not much more I can say that I haven't said 1,000 times over, so I won't waste anyone's time by going into the details of this other than to say 15 touchdowns in 12 games. Not extrapolated data. He had 15 touchdowns in 12 games. He had 12 rushing touchdowns in those 12 games. He had 1144. And if you extrapolate that data, which I didn't there, you would have got 21 touchdowns and running back 2 overall numbers on a 17-game pace, which would have been barely behind Christian McCaffrey. Corum doesn't scare me. This guy had a foot injury. He sat out like 2 weeks. Just to go through some things to make sure he's ready to go. He was dragging sleds on his back 100 yards down the field, and McVay said, hey, it's probably good for you to just kind of like take it easy. It's May. And we're going into June, and so they sat him the end of May, and everyone's like, oh, Corum's taking his job. Now Corum gets to learn the entire offense. Oh, 2 weeks is up already? Did Corum learn, 2 plays? It felt like 2 days. Kyren's back. You can see him running out there right now, running full speed, cutting hard. There's no holding back whatsoever. So anybody's narrative that Corum's taking the job or he's already hurt, Kyren's already hurt again, he wasn't hurt. He sat out, soreness. Bijan sat out. Bijan looks great. Is anybody really worried? Are you really going to count that he sat out the final 2 weeks of May just to take it easy because he was working too hard in January, February, March, April, May? Are you really going to count that as an injury? Do it if you want. Do it at your own demise because Kyren's coming for everybody. And if you think that the best handcuff in fantasy football, Kyren and Corum, which is in your control, you can run your mouth about Corum all you want. You can try and come back and say, Smitty, I told you Corum was going to start a couple games. You didn't tell me that. I told you that. We told you. We told you that. We told you that. That's why we reference this board every single day. Every day I pull this board up on a live stream. You didn't tell us nothing. This combo guarantees you not top 5, top 1 to 5 running back numbers. You didn't tell nothing, and you must have the combo. The combo is critical, and if you have the combo, you're getting probably 15 to 18 total touchdowns, not to combine using both RBs. I mean, you only start one of them at a time 17 times. You're getting a bare minimum of 15 touchdowns from this guy. He had 15 last year. And you're going to get probably about 1,900 total yards. Easily could be the running back 1 overall. And anybody crying about Corum season. Yeah, because you don't own Kyren. Your only hope is that somehow, some way, more draft capital. Probably the most ridiculous line ever used is, actually, Corum's a better college prospect than Kyren. Doesn't matter. Cool story, Bob. Cool story. Awesome. Corum's a better college prospect. Really cool story. Guess who's a baller now? Guess who grew up and now has big boy pants that he pulls up every day and goes to work? Kyren. Guess who turned into Superman once he hit the NFL? Oh, Corum was a better prospect? Have you ever heard of a story about Captain America? Scrawny little kid when he was a prospect. Look at him now. This is Captain America. Not to mention, have you ever thought for 1 second, Kyren Williams was struck by, as we said in the chat a couple times, by Zeus when he was a baby. He was born into greatness. Look at the lightning bolt on his nose. Do you know of another human being on planet Earth that was born with a lightning bolt from Zeus on their nose? Don't ever question Kyren Williams ever again. It is a bad look, and it makes you look like you aren't paying attention. Devon Achane. What is there to say about Devon Achane that we haven't said 10,000 times in a row? This kind of summarizes everything that I feel all in one video. This guy's been eating spinach over the offseason. A bunch of cases of spinach went missing. A bunch of spinach trucks got reportedly taken. And all of a sudden, this man Achane shows up 10, 15 pounds heavier. All muscle, pure muscle, just as quick. And I've got a little synopsis on that.
Achane is the man. His haters call him small,
But he is 9 feet tall.
Achane is the man.
Achane was such a monster last year. 2023 stats, he was running back 24, but he was barely used. 800 yards, 8 touchdowns running, 3 receiving, 11 total, only 27 receptions for 197. This guy's got to do some damage. And he showed up bigger and stronger, put on 10 to 12 pounds of just pure muscle. He looks massive, and he's going to come out firing in 2024. And for anybody that thinks, oh, Jalen Wright, they drafted him, or Mostert's there, keep in mind, Miami, Mike McDaniel, the architect of the Deebo Samuel wideback role, who's the head coach of the Dolphins, created a Deebo Samuel-esque role, but from a running back form. That is Devon Achane. And Devon Achane is going to be his Deebo Samuel from here until the end of time. Essentially, you've got a guy capable of, I think, running for 1,100 yards this year. He's the best yards per carry running back in the history of the NFL. The only reason why, if you try and filter certain data to find out who is, he won't pop up depending on the filter because he only has so many carries, right? He's only played so long, so you got to scale down the qualifying amount of carries to find that he is the number 1 running back in the National Football League, and 7.8 yards per carry is unreal. And does he carry that through the remainder of his career? Probably not, but is he a 5.5, 6 to 7 yard per carry running back? He might just be the best yard per carry running back in the history of the NFL when all is said and done. And this guy easily could pull in another 13 to 15 touchdowns. Let's call it 14 to be safe. We'll call it 14 touchdowns, 10 on the ground, 4 receiving will be conservative. 6.5 yards per carry will be conservative. 1,100 yards instead of a measly 800 when he's used a whole lot more. That's conservative. 55 receptions instead of 27 for 425 instead of about 200. And then 1 more touchdown. Very conservative. We're talking about a 1,500 to 1,600 yard back. 6.5 a pop, 14 touchdowns, 55 to 60 receptions. That is a top 5 running back. He is such a gold mine. He is the most explosive player in the National Football League. His efficiency, his elusiveness rating was number 1 in the league last year. His ability to break away a run was number 1 in the league last year. Like, do you notice a pattern? Number 1 yards per carry, number 1 elusive rating in the National Football League. His breakaway ability and metrics are number 1 in the National Football League. He is by far. There's no like guess here. This is Smitty's opinion. He's by far and away the most explosive player in the National Football League. Excuse me, Smitty? Yes, fact check Freddie. What? I just got a correction for the show here. You had mentioned that Gibbs was the most explosive running back in the National Football League. Now you're saying Achane is, contradicting yourself. I just wanted to let you know. Whatever, bro. And you worry about what? That Miami Mike McDaniel doesn't want to use him? You're worried about Jalen Wright taking away carries. Let me tell you something. Jalen Wright is on this cuff board, and this is the third most important cuff in fantasy football, but it goes three ways. There's two different directions. You could cuff Wright to Achane. If Achane were to go down, Wright would get more work. You could cuff Wright to Mostert. If Mostert went down, Wright would get more work. But this is not a player that's going to take away from the Deebo Samuel role. That's carved out and kind of given. It's almost like the tight end position, right? There's so many targets that are dedicated to the tight end. It doesn't so much matter what the wide receiver room looks like to some degree. Same thing with Deebo Samuel, right? He's going to get his work. He's going to get runs. He's going to be used. Deebo was the most goal line targeted or red zone targeted player in the National Football League last year. This is what Achane kind of is to Miami Mike McDaniel. And you couldn't cuff very easily all three of these guys together because Wright and Mostert have a very late value. And if you don't have a league where you have that many bench spots, then cry me a river. Like, do what you got to do. Draft the backup you feel is right, the most important cuff. I'd probably say it's right at the end of the day if you want to take a more long-term approach because Mostert gets hurt, but you can cuff all three. And if you got a deeper bench, or you can taxi squad, if you're in a particular dynasty league or whatever, you could taxi squad Wright, and then you could afford to carry two of the running backs. But I can't control what your league size is. I can only tell you that cuffing all three is very easy, and it's an easy way to smash your league into a million pieces. But man, Achane's going to go nuts in 2024, and quite honestly, he's my favorite third round running back. And I mean, it is absolutely crazy that we could draft a wide receiver like, let's just put Tyreek Hill just for conversation's sake right here, and then we don't go RB until round 2, and we take Kyren if we want, or Achane, whoever we think we're going to be able to get, in this, let's say Hill's at like 3, and Kyren we get here, and Achane we get here. And then we either get Hurts, he's going 4.1, we probably won't get him, and this is underdog fantasy. Mahomes is going 5.1 over here. So we certainly can get him in this fourth round a lot of the time. If for any reason gets taken, so be it. Take AR5 in round 5 and take Travis Kelce in round 4. Like, look at this team right here. Let me just show you the worst case scenario. You get Tyreek Hill, Achane, and Kyren with your 2 running back selections in 2 and 3. Kelce, and you get AR5. Now, my hope is that you get Mahomes, okay? So you probably won't get Kelce and Mahomes. Let's be realistic. But you could easily get a McBride, Already got McBride right here. McBride right here. Look at that team. Hill, Kyren, Achane, Mahomes, McBride. I mean, come on. Come on. It's like giving you a blueprint to how to go smash your league into a million pieces. I feel like I should just end the show right now, to be honest with you. Achane to the moon. Doubt them all you want. I don't care. I don't care. And I'm going to quickly go over this because, we've been here a while so far, and I want to make these videos reasonably shorter than the longer live streams. But just say Barkley, we don't know. You don't know. I don't know. No one knows. I keep saying this, and it's the best way to describe it. You don't know. I don't know. No one knows how good he could be. Nobody. He's never had a good offensive line. He's never had a good team. He's never been able to live in the red zone. This guy could have 14 touchdowns and 1,500 yards. He could lead the league in rushing. Kyren, Bijan, CMC, and Barkley are probably my early front runners for who could be the rushing leader, the rushing title go-getter in 2024. And Barkley's going to have a phenomenal year. And Kellen Moore's going to run the ball a lot. 95% of the offense has changed. Some might be concerned about Hurts because I'm not. Hurts is a baller. Hurts is going to learn the system. Hurts is going to deploy it perfectly, and they're still going to do the brotherly shove. But this guy's going to take a little pressure off that, and he could have easily about 14 touchdowns and 1,400 yards, 1,500 yards. I love Barkley this year. He's a slam dunk second-round pick. JT, injury concerns for me. Some could say Barkley too, for sure. These guys both come with near equal injury concern. But JT, I like a lot. I don't like him more than these guys, but I still like him right here. Jacobs and JT, I could go back and forth on. Jacobs, some say he's going to lose some work to Lloyd. Some say that, he's not going to stay healthy. I say that the offense is so dynamic and explosive that he's going to have a monster year. So wouldn't surprise me if Jacobs is 7 or 8 overall, to be honest. And Henry, the reason I have Henry at 10 and not like 8, 9, or even 7 is because I don't know. He's 30 years old. Ziggy, how old is Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry is 30 years old and was born on January 4th, 1994.
Yeah, so he is 30. He's not turning 31, but he is 30, and I just don't know that I'm putting him 10. That's respectable, but I don't know that I can put him any higher than that because is the explosiveness going to be there? I know the touchdown opportunities will be. I think everyone here is banking on like 14, 15 touchdowns, which will probably happen because Gus Bus would have multiple touchdown games. We're probably looking at 2 or 3 2 TD games. We're probably looking at least 1 3 TD game. This is a guy that probably sleepwalk into, in a worst case scenario, 900 yards and 14 touchdowns or something. So he's very much an exciting player to own, but there is a lot of risk. Make sure you're diluting your shares of him. You're diversifying your portfolio. Don't grab a ton of Henry. But the beautiful part about Henry is that his ADP is like round 3, 4. It's not 1 or 2. We're not even paying near the old price of Henry, and everybody's expecting there to be a lot of risk. So it bakes in the risk to the point where I'm back in. I probably wouldn't be in at all if he was top of round 2. I'd say, no, too big of a risk. But at round 4, we love it. And then you've got this plethora of player, Rachaad White, right here. ETN, obviously, he was a top 5 running back last year. It's so funny how we keep disrespecting him, but they keep talking about wanting to use more runners. And I don't know. I think ETN's a very safe 11. So if we had to throw someone at 11, I'd say ETN deserves it. He deserves to be 7, 8, or 9, really. But I think we're all just, he's a 4th rounder for a reason. Everyone's worried about what it all means when coaches talk. And at some point, is it going to be true that they dial him back? Pacheco, a fantastic 11, 12, or 13. Walker could be 10 easily. If we start hearing Walker's going to be the workhorse and going to get, if his coach comes out, Ryan Grubb says, his offensive coordinator says, we're going to give him 1,500 rushing yards and he's going to lead the league in rushing or something, then boom, we're back. Like, we're putting Walker 7 or 8. We love Walker. We're a big Walker community, but we are kind of on a standstill, and we're taking advantage that he's going really late, right? So we're not going to urge him up here and usher him to the top, and if we don't need to. Jahmyr White, we love Jahmyr White. Najee Harris, fantastic potential top 11, 12, 13, 14. These guys are all in the mix for 11 to 15, and there's more. But that is my top 10 running back video, ladies and gentlemen. And I appreciate you watching. We're going to do more of these like short form uploads and premiere videos on top of all the regular live streams. Nothing's going away on the live stream front. I just want to bring you guys more content like this. Don't forget to join my Patreon. That link is in the description of the video. I'll probably also put it in the premiere chat. $10 a month gets you these live chats right here. And the first 200 people, not only do you get the live chats, right? You can see them right here. The app is so simple. There's 10 live chats. We're always there continuing the conversation. All the amazing people you see in the live streams are all here 365, 24/7 chatting away. What do you guys think of this trade? What do you think of this? Who wants to get in a draft? Game day, this game day lounge, we're going to all be there during the games, every game, Monday night games, Thursday games, Sunday games. We're always in there chatting. Who scores? What do you need today in terms of like a Bijan touchdown, etc. And the first 200 members get into the 240-man league. It's 11 leagues of 22. Details will come on it, but the winners get into a dynasty league with me in 2025. All of these drafts, these 11 drafts in this 242-man league will be drafted live on the show on a Saturday in a draft marathon. And then the 2025 dynasty league with me will be live as well on the channel in 2025. So you want to be a part of that. Just the first 200 members get in $10. And we'll talk more about this on the show. Exclusive write-ups as well. So you get the 10 live chats and the write-ups. It's amazing. I'll see you all on the next live stream. And don't forget to get your Underdog Fantasy Football app downloaded. 50% match on your first deposit up to $250. The minimum is only $10. So if you do $10, they'll give you $5. That link is in the description of the video. I'll see you all on the next live stream. Don't forget, I'm live Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, every single Monday through Friday. I'm live whenever big news breaks, and I'm also live most midnights doing drafts. So make sure you download that Underdog Draft app and use code Smitty or the link in the description and be ready to draft around midnight Eastern most nights. Deuces.